What's up, friends, and welcome into Fantasy Pros, the fantasy football podcast. We got a great one for you because we are looking at Pat Fitzmaurice's must-have players. Who is Pat targeting? Well, we're doing the easy work for you as you scour all the amazing work that Pat does in the written and podcast form. We're going to condense it down to an easy, consumable, Fitzy target meal. So, Pat Fitzmaurice, let's start with it. We are going to go on the higher end, 2 early round draft targets. We're looking at top 50 players. We're also using half PPR as our baseline, our consensus when we're looking at ECR, which is expert consensus ranks. So 2 early round targets. Pat, hit us with them.
Let's start with Chase Brown. Welsh, a repeat from last year's must-have list. Chase Brown finished as the RB12 and a half-point PPR fantasy scoring last season. Only averaged 6.3 touches a game over the first 3 weeks before starting to get more involved in week 4. Then Zach Moss got hurt in week 8 and didn't play another game all season. Beginning in week 9, Chase Brown played at least 80% of the Bengals' offensive snaps in every game. And from week 9 on, Chase Brown was RB5 and a half-point PPR fantasy points per game behind only Saquon Barkley, Jahmyr Gibbs, Bijan Robinson, and Josh Jacobs. Chase Brown averaged 18.9 carries, 4.8 catches, and 116.3 yards from scrimmage per game from week 9 on, and had 6 touchdowns in those 8 games. Obviously, Welsh, Chase Brown won't continue to get snap shares of 80 or 90% every week, but you'd have to imagine his workload is still going to be pretty zesty. The other running backs in Cincinnati are Zach Moss, Samaje Perine, and Taj Brooks. Moss and Perine are filler. Those guys are the basket of bread you get at a nice restaurant. Taj Brooks is more interesting. He handled a big workload at Texas Tech and has a well-rounded skill set, but he was a 6th-round pick. No NFL team makes big plans for a 6th-round pick. So Chase Brown is once again poised to have a big role in one of the best offenses in the league. He showed us last year he's good, and he adds substantial pass-catching value. 54 catches last year with 38 of them coming in his last 8 games. So, yeah, Chase Brown has an early 3rd-round ECR. I don't think he should get past the 2-3 turn. And then my other is George Kittle for the early rounds. He is tight end 3 in ECR, 35th overall. Over the last 7 seasons, which is pretty much everything after his rookie year, George Kittle has averaged 12.2 half-point PPR fantasy points per game. That's what Brock Bowers averaged last year, 12.2 half-point PPR fantasy points. Trey McBride was at 12.1. Now, if you think Brock Bowers was just clearing his throat last year and has bigger and better things ahead, then by all means, you can justify drafting Bowers ahead of George Kittle. And for the record, I do think Bowers was just getting started. If you think Trey McBride is on the verge of a touchdown bonanza, even though he scored 8 touchdowns in 49 NFL games and scored very few touchdowns during his college career at Colorado State, by all means, draft Trey McBride ahead of George Kittle. I'm not really convinced a Trey McBride touchdown avalanche is coming. I have McBride ranked tight end 3 behind Kittle. And by the way, I also trust Brock Purdy as a target delivery mechanism more than I trust Kyler Murray. So Kittle's been fantastic for a long time, ridiculously efficient throughout his career, 2.28 yards per route run and 10.1 yards per target over his career. Those are sensational numbers. And with such crazy efficiency, Kittle doesn't really need a flood of targets in order to put up big numbers. And unlike Bowers and McBride, Kittle is a reliable touchdown scorer. He's averaged 7.8 TDs over the last 4 years with at least 6 touchdowns in each of those years.
And you know I love hearing about the Niners. Early tight ends, pretty popular thing right now. Chase Brown also allows you to get kind of your early wide receiver, whether there's a little bit of flexibility and you were able to get a Chase Brown in the 3rd and maybe a George Kittle in the 4th, pairing it with 2 wide receivers. I can see why these are targets. Or there might be worlds where if you have a late pick in the 2nd, you got to jump on Chase Brown and then you're battling if you can get George Kittle. But these are 2 great targets. It makes sense on strategy. So now let's move over to the mid rounds. And if you guys want to follow along when we mention ECR, again, that's expert consensus ranks on Fantasy Pro, fantasypros.com/rankings. You can check out where Pat, myself, and everybody else has got on their individual ranks, and the ECR is a collective across the board. So when we're talking about that, we've got ADP data and ranks data for how these players are values and how these guys are targets. So we're now moving to the mid round. So this is like a mid 51 to 100 ranged player. You've got 2 must-have targets, and they're both wide receivers. So Pat, hit us with them.
Yeah, the first is rookie Tetairoa McMillan of the Panthers. His ECR is wide receiver 29, 64th overall. I've got him wide receiver 22, 47th overall. I can understand the hesitation to invest in a rookie wide receiver tied to a quarterback who has yet to definitively prove that he's a good enough passer to be a long-term NFL starter. But Tetairoa McMillan is a terrific prospect, drafted 8th overall, more than 1,300 receiving yards at Arizona in each of his last 2 seasons. He did it last year despite mediocre quarterback play. McMillan is 6'5", with a massive catch radius and good, strong hands. He's an advanced route runner with a knack for attacking zone. And while I can't say I'm 100% convinced that Bryce Young is going to become a good or even an average NFL passer, he did take noticeable strides in that direction down the stretch last season, and Panthers head coach Dave Canales has been very good at maximizing the talents of his QBs. So the Panthers don't have a lot of pass-catching talent beyond McMillan, the ancient Adam Thielen, Xavier Legette, and Jalen Coker, who haven't totally proven themselves yet. And with the Panthers' defense likely to be among the worst in the league, Carolina might be forced to throw the ball at a pretty high rate this season. Not out of the question that Tetairoa McMillan could finish top 10 in targets in his first year in the NFL.
Yeah, this another wide receiver you have too, I think, is a really interesting pairing if you were to jump into the wide receiver market. I know you're not the biggest rookie wide receiver market. I know you're not the biggest Travis Hunter guy, but whether you were taking McMillan, you're taking Travis Hunter, or you're taking any kind of like these high upsidey that maybe lacks some potential floor. This wide receiver, outside of what you're probably going to talk about, the quarterback play, I think is built around some floor at their cost. So who is your other mid-round target?
Yeah, it's Jerry Jeudy, Welsh. And as with Tetairoa McMillan, there are some ecosystem questions for Jerry Jeudy. But last year we did finally get the Jerry Jeudy we've been waiting for ever since he was drafted 15th overall in 2020. Jeudy had 90 catches last year for 1,229 yards and 4 touchdowns. And Jeudy put up those crazy numbers, even though he averaged just 3 catches and 38 receiving yards in the 7 games Deshaun Watson started at quarterback for the Browns last year. In the 7 games Jameis Winston started, Jeudy averaged 7 catches a game, 112.3 yards. And even when Dorian Thompson-Robinson and Bailey Zappi combined to make 3 starts for the Browns down the stretch, Jeudy averaged 6.7 catches and 59 yards in those games. So I realize the Browns probably aren't going to have a high-flying offense in 2025, but there is a very good chance that Joe Flacco is going to open the season as Cleveland's starting QB. And this late career YOLO version of Joe Flacco that we've seen in the latter stages of his career has put up some pretty big passing numbers. In the 11 starts he's made over the last 2 years, Flacco's averaged 291.7 passing yards and 2.1 touchdown passes per game. Jerry Jeudy is above average in 2 very important categories for a wide receiver: route running and after the catch ability. I think he's a really good buy at an affordable price.
I completely agree with that too. Not that he's super sexy, but he's the number one target. He comes at a super cheap cost, and there's a lot of different team constructions that he fits. He pretty much fits all of them, whether it's like you didn't go super early with wide receiver, and maybe you did get one of those higher tight ends and a running back early on. He's that guy, and I use floor loosely because, and I'm saying it because he's the number one guy. He should get the sheer force of targets, but he just works on every other end. You took some high upside players, you're looking for that floor, or he can be an incredible wide receiver 4 that you end up putting on a team if you went really wide receiver heavy. So there's a lot of use cases why he makes sense. So let's move now to our later round targets. These are plus 100 ECR based picks. So these are much later guys. One player you are known for, my friend. I really, really love the other. He is one of mine. So you got 2 picks here, a quarterback and a wide receiver. Everybody and their mother knows exactly who's coming for this quarterback. If there's a late target that is attached to Pat, it's this guy.
Yeah, it's Drake Maye. And I've been trying to sell him all off season. We know that running quarterbacks are fantasy cheat codes, Welsh. And Drake Maye offers far and away the most bang for the buck of all the running quarterbacks, since the top ones are all really expensive. Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, Jaden Daniels, Jalen Hurts. Drake Maye started 12 games as a rookie, but if we exclude week 18 when he only played 3 snaps before being pulled, May averaged 38.3 rushing yards a game. Over a full season, that projects to 651 rushing yards. But I think Maye could give us 800, 900 rushing yards. As a sophomore at North Carolina, he had 698 rushing yards in 14 games, and that's with college quarterbacks having sack yardage deducted from their rushing yardage. So Maye lost about 200 yards in sacks that year and was really closer to 850 rushing yards in 14 games, if you factor that in. Drake Maye had 2 TD runs last season. In 2 college seasons as a starter, he had 16 touchdown runs in only 26 games. Not only can Maye run, but he was surprisingly pretty good as a passer last year, despite just one of the worst supporting casts in the league. The Patriots have added some pass catchers with Stephon Diggs and rookie Kyle Williams, and they've dramatically overhauled their offensive line. So, yeah, last year Jaden Daniels was the best draft value among the running quarterbacks, and he paid off big time. This year, I think Drake Maye is that guy.
Your final one is one of my favorite picks. He's one of those guys I keep looking at, and it's like you want to get him higher. It's in an offense where a lot of people are projecting the number 1 wide receiver to be maybe the number 1 in fantasy. There's more efficiency as far as what the quarterback play is out there. And this is a guy who might just quietly, where we're propping up players like Jordan Addison, he might be a cheaper version of that second wide receiver that's not of the T. Higgins ilk, but a guy that might just walk into 1,000 yards. Your last one is Atlanta Falcons, Darnell Mooney. So hit it.
Yeah, might walk into 1,000 yards. Well, he just barely missed last year. He finished with 992 yards. Almost certainly would have topped the 1,000-yard mark had he not missed the Falcons' final game of the season, a 44-38 shootout overtime loss to the Panthers. That would have been his second 1,000-yard season. He had one in his second NFL season with the Bears. Mooney had 7 games last year with more than 80 receiving yards. He averaged a career-best 9.4 yards per target and 1.88 yards per route run. And Mooney is not going to come off the field very often this year. He had a 92.9% snap share last season. And the Falcons really made no significant additions at wide receiver in the offseason. So after drawing 106 targets last year, Mooney is once again in pretty good shape to draw more than 100 targets this year. And I do believe in the arm talent of Atlanta's young quarterback, Michael Penix Jr. There's just never any buzz around Darnell Mooney, but he is a really solid value in the later rounds.
We've got some must-have targets. If you're looking for the top end, the early rounds, Chase Brown and George Kittle, that's who Fitzy wants. In the mid-rounds, you've got Tetairoa McMillan and Jerry Jeudy. And in the late rounds, Drake Maye and Darnell Mooney. Those are some of Fitzy's must-have targets. But guess what? There are more. If you want more must-have players from Fitz, you can check out his article in the must-have targets over on the FantasyPros football draft kit for premium subscribers. I actually also just released mine. Not that you probably care, but my targets are there as well. You can get Fitz and a bunch of other great analysts. And if you're not a premium subscriber, that is okay. Our draft kit still has you covered with full cheat sheets, positional primers that you can access for completely free, but you definitely are going to want to sign up for premium so you can get access to not just these names, but a boatload more from Fitzy. So go to fantasypros.com/kit. fantasypros.com/kit and draft like a pro today. For Pat Fitzmaurice, I'm Chris Welsh. Thank you guys so much for hanging out with us, and good luck in your drafts. We'll talk to you next time right here on Fantasy Pros, the football podcast.